Hi, everybody. Welcome to Untapped Azania. My name is Maureen, the Even the Queen, the Even the Princess, whichever one you prefer. Welcome to another episode of Untapped once again. I'm not chilling alone. Chilling with the one and only.
Mash D.
How you doing, Mash D?
I'm fresh and my fresh just get fresher.
Ooh, listen to you.
Yeah.
Listen to you.
It's the 2025 fresh.
Is that the mood? That's what we're going with.
No, you know diamonds in production, they always glow greater than the pressure.
Love that. I don't want to waste any time. Happy New Year to you. If you're new here, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back again. Like, subscribe. Let us know what you've been tapped into so we can tap into that as well. But before we get any further, Mash, what have you been tapped into?
For me, it's just like trying to get ahead of 2025.
Sure.
So like, yes, I've been like watching some interviews, reading some articles, trying to gym a bit, trying to sweat a bit and stuff. But like at the core of it, what I've been tapped into is trying to get ahead of 2025. Because for me, 2025 properly kicks off next week, like from a professional standpoint. But like I've been doing a lot of work like prior to like needing to do it. So like
that's fire.
Just trying to get ahead of 2025 is
like that. I think I should have taken a bit from that because I started this week from a professional perspective and it was hard. It was so hard because people aren't back yet, but I also felt like mentally I wasn't back yet. I was just moving from the December vibe to directly to work, which was just like a really big shift. So yeah, I should have taken that. Anything else, my dog?
Nah, mainly that, just like, also just the holidays, just reflecting on the holidays, how great they were. And for me, they were also very different. You remember how I spoke about like, how we've been on some, December is not fun anymore these days.
Yeah.
And truth is, December is fun, we're just old.
Yeah.
Like the kids were having fun. Like, you saw the statuses, everything. So also just that, it was very laid back. Did acoustics and poetry with you, and I guess outside of that there wasn't like much. I was just chilling, family, Christmas, all that, and that's literally how I wanted it to be because I wanted to like get into 2025, relax, and just ahead of everything.
I love that. I also had like a similar vibe. Like I was at home. I did say I want to go on hikes, so I did a bunch of hikes when I was at home, which was beautiful. We did A&P. That was like fire because we had coordinated the whole thing. We're like, we're gonna go home midweek, which is crazy, so that we can actually make it for the show. And I kid you not, I did not regret it. But I feel like I say this for both of us because we liked it enough to actually have somebody in studio to actually talk to us about that. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to waste time. Please welcome Jean.
Daily.
I don't know what to do when I introduce you.
The man said he wanted tonic. Tonic was his drink of preference.
Just think about that, gin and tonic. That's where it's at. How you feeling, bro?
Oh, I'm feeling good. I'm finally on this set.
Welcome,
so cool.
bro.
Thank you very much. It's such a cozy space.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And
that's such a beautiful compliment.
We're honored to have you. Yeah. Honored to have you.
What are you thinking? What have you been tapped into? How was your holidays?
My holidays. So for me, December is work, right? So my holiday starts in January. Also because my birthday is in January. So December is always work. I'm stressing about acoustics. After acoustics, I'm stressing about reporting and doing all this post-event stuff for acoustics. So December was hectic, but it worked out for the best, which I'm really happy about.
Yeah.
But I pretty much enjoyed December.
I love that. But don't worry about it. We're going to talk a lot about acoustics and we're going to get into that because for me, it was the first time me attending acoustics. I had seen people attending it. I had seen the vibe. 2023, I remember I was out on vacation and I just kept seeing my mutuals and I was like, never, like, why am I not there? So like this year for me,
it's like this hidden gem in Venda, bro. Yeah.
Right. And it actually, there's another thing, like you keep seeing these cool kids like hanging around that space. And I'm like, even me, I'm a cool kid. I want to be there. So I actually would like to get into that. But before we get into acoustics, before we get into the details, I just want to know.
I know you want to get into gym, but I want to know what you've been tapped into. Even if it's just one thing.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Even if it's just one thing.
So I've been tapped into a lot of event history industry documentaries.
Yeah.
Like just
You
events.
see?
I would have missed that one.
Yeah. So like just really understanding the industry that we're in and like just the risks, like also just to make sense of a lot of things that you discover along the way and just trying to relate to other people in a position of management and like, promotion and hosting. And so I've really been tapped into a lot of documentaries. One of them, I watched a Coachella documentary. I watched the 1999 Woodstock documentary. That's a nice one to catch on Netflix as well. I mostly watched documentaries about events in 2019 to 2020 because of what happened with COVID.
Yeah.
I was just about, can I just interject you real quick?
Yeah.
Because I was just about to speak of an article I read a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
And the article broke down how, or maybe it's just events of that magnitude and it's not like generic, but they spoke about how Wimbledon was like the only event, quote unquote, that had event insurance. So like a lot of events lost money, like specifically event insurance for like a pandemic specific insurance.
Yeah.
Shucks.
And and you
That's
think
such a
about
crazy
all
fact.
the other big events that exist of that magnitude and how much they could have lost.
Shucks.
Yeah.
Because there's another one, I think it's called, I don't want to mix it up with the recent event that's happening called Milk and Cookies and Milk with
Oh,
Keisha
yeah,
Miller.
yeah, yeah.
But there's another one, I think it's called Something and Honey. It's a big event. And with that one, it was it happened in 2020. So they did one in 2019, but 2020, the pandemic was like really, really heavy. And so their insurance only covered them for like weather because the pandemic was not at a point at that time for them for so insurance companies were like, hey, we're not gonna touch this
About
area.
this.
We're only gonna cover you for if anything happens with winter conditions. So like I just to
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. You guys are
Very
so
interesting.
smart and you tap into
Yeah.
smart things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, actually, that's so interesting because it actually fits into this conversation because we want to know about that, like the behind the scenes of making something like A&P and putting it together. And it feels like you are actually so immersed in it that you actually like sit
study
down
the
and-
history.
Yeah, study the history and go back into it. But before we get into that,
Zone of competence.
right? Yeah, and I like seeing that. That's another thing. I like seeing people who are just passionate in what they do and they zone into it so well that they become that good. So yeah, really excited to get into that. But anyway, let's just start right in the beginning. Like, who is Jean?
Yo.
If you had to describe yourself to somebody new, like what would you want them to like know about you?
I'm a child of God. That's the first thing about me. I think outside of that, I'm a very because it's a very tricky question. Every single time I'm asked
Let me help curate it for you. It's like, let's start your life story in the beginning. What is the genesis for you? What's your earliest memory?
Yeah.
My earliest memory was Chikeba, actually. I feel like when I still lived in Venda, I was in primary school. My earliest memory was around 2001, 2002. And that's because in 2000, I was involved in a really tragic car accident, and I don't really remember a lot of stuff that happened during that time. But all the, post-accident stuff that happened, I sort of like get. So yeah, early memories, just being a very unserious person as a kid. I just always.
What
wanted
does
to play.
unserious look like? What were you getting up to?
Man, I was just, at school, all my friends looked like they had a plan in life, like in primary school.
But like that's
And they
like
were so young.
you're 8-9 years. at that point.
But still, they looked like
People
they had
look like-
their stuff put together. I looked like I just all of a
just
sudden
arrived.
found myself at school,
Yeah.
And so my thing was like, maybe it was like an escape mechanism for other things or whatever, but like I was just very unserious, like I was the one that's teasing everyone, I was the one that's drawing the teacher, I was the one that's so my earliest memories would speak to that, and just my friendships.
How do you think those memories kind of morphed who you've become? And like how does, because I do understand like from like you didn't spend a good chunk of your life in Venda. Then you had to move to Gauteng.
Yeah.
Like how did that part like now influence? Because now you have like the Venda influence, and now you're growing up. You're in. And
so interesting. It did a lot because of what I considered the unseriousness, right? Like, so when I moved to Venda, I had failed primary school, bro, like grade 5. Like, I was asked to repeat grade 5, which was crazy. So when I moved, I sort of like had I wanted to reinvent myself, right? So the unseriousness now, it's like, okay, I'm going to a new environment where I get to reinvent myself, really become a new person and whatever, you know, and I really worked out on that. And, you know, when I moved to Pretoria, I was presented with new challenges, you know, and I don't speak the language. You know, okay, at least went to a school that really taught you English proper, you know, okay, or in the Chikaba way. That means. But, you know, so I was very isolated, I think, in the first year, but I learned to adapt so quick. And I would say that experience that I had in Venda just taught, like, I just wanted to be a different person from like that age. Like, after moving, I'm like, okay, here's my chance. I can introduce myself differently. But also then I also didn't have the luxury of being unserious because I don't speak the language. So you're getting picked on. So you're the quiet
underdog
kid, and you're dark skinned, and you know, it's, you know, and there was this entire ignorance around being from Venda in Gauteng, you know, where they like somehow they just treated you with like a very xenophobic attitude. Growing up in primary school and high school.
That's a weird thing. Okay, but yeah.
Yeah, so that was my experience, you know. So I had to like grow a thick skin and just find ways to like overcome that and find something that can make me cool.
That's fine, because like you speak about reinventing yourself and like reintroducing yourself, and that for me is like, it's so big because I'm wondering what that does to your mental. Like, you're a kid and you kind of, it's almost like you have to think this big thoughts of actually now, what do I want? How do I want to present myself to the world, you know?
Interesting, because how I sort of did it was, so in primary school, I used to love drawing a lot.
Yeah.
And it was because of my late friend, who was like my childhood best friend, his soul rest in peace, Dagan Matidi. Yeah. He used to like drawing a lot, right? He's the founder of Venda brand, MIV94, right?
Really?
So he used to like drawing a lot. So I got into drawing, right? So when I came this side, what I did was like, I was still in my alone time, I was still in that drawing phase. So I sort of drew a character. And I called that character NSK, and like, this is the cooler version of myself, you know, from my Tsonga name, Nsuku. So I
was just about to ask, what's your, because I want to know your actual full name, but also like how you became Jin. But after,
but I'll get to that. Yeah, cool, awesome. So I sort of drew this character, and he was so cool. He almost looked like Huey from the Boondocks, and I was like, so this is who I am. And like, now when I move, like, I need to be this character, and everything, it was, you know, so it's like a little comic thing, you know, every little scene or whatever draft about this character would be like what I expected to show up as at school as well, you know, so so I created like this archetype and tried so much to be like him, and he became, that archetype character became a poet, writer, became a rapper, and that sort of made me like a little relevant.
That is so fire. Like, that is so fire to me.
Yeah, it's like an alter ego.
But you're a kid, you're in grade 5, and you're creating an alter ego. And as you grow up, you're going to have to reinvent and recreate. And
but also just like what it's embedded on, like grief.
Yeah.
You know, I never used to wear my cap back until my best friend died. Like, I wear my cap back for my best friend. Like, I never used to, like, I always wear my cap front, like in the so it's like, it's so powerful. But Jin, like, Nsuku.
So with my Tsonga name as well, it's so my mom's Tsonga, my dad is Venda, and so my name's so Ndifi Musuku, but at the same time Ndifi Nsuku. So because what would happen is, depending on where I am, if I'm on my mom's side of the family, and I mostly grew up around my dad's side of the family, so they would just call me Musuku, just translating that same name to Venda. And then the Tsonga people would just translate that same name to Tsonga. So it's the same name, but it just really depends on where I am. But
what's
on
the
my
original?
ID, on my ID, it's the Tsonga name.
Oh, it's Tsonga.
But my family, the Venda family,
it's more dominant.
They will never use that name.
But which one's more dominant?
It's Musuku.
It's Musuku.
Yeah, it's Musuku.
Which isn't the one that's like...
Yeah. Because I
Interesting.
live in like a Venda.
Yeah.
Or like,
Neighborhood.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
I found that
that's
so interesting because
Very.
if you've watched some episode, I'm big on names. Like
big on names?
I've spoken about my Venda name. My name is Pindulo. Like Venda. I use Maureen a lot because that's how I grew up. But like
Yeah.
I keep on saying like Pindulo has so much meaning, like the answer, solution,
Yeah.
right? And I'm wondering what that does to you when people are calling you
by your
gold.
name. Oh yeah.
Like,
So
like
that's
Musuku.
that's a tricky part
Yeah?
because there's a sense of regret sort of that I have of having built such a brand around the Jin Daily name, which I did for specific reasons, also to protect myself from specific things that were happening earlier on in my life. But it also just took away that sort of prophecy that comes from people calling me by my name, and speaking, I guess, those things into my life, gold, wealth, all that, So I feel like I've sort of hidden away from that by sort of creating this brand that was also, I guess, to protect something, so yeah.
I mean, I can relate to that. I'll get to you, Mesh. I can relate to that because personally, I also feel that way in some sense because I feel like when people say Pindulo, they're actually proclaiming that.
Yeah,
They're saying the solution is here, like acknowledging that part about
I'm gonna
you,
pose
right?
this to both. So is it then that like you're afraid of the weight that comes with? Because then because it's a whole conversation on fear. I was just about
Yeah.
is it
Yeah.
fear? Like I was having a conversation about neurodivergence versus neurotypicals and like just navigating the world,
Yeah.
right? Where like you have big conversations about your ADHD and like whatever else these days and like the conversation I was having was about how potently you're engaging with the world as a neurodivergent. Like you see all the little mannerisms at work that are fake, that it's just like, this is just like small talk. For you,
this
it's like,
doesn't make
it
sense.
weighs on you, right? But also there's a life that you imagine yourself living, that you're like, an ideal life for me where I'm not exposed to the world as it exists, where I need to mask exists. But like that world versus like the world of you like living with like neurotypicals, the gap in between is fear.
Yeah.
It's like the fear of the unknown. This is known. I know that like even if I have ADHD and I want to become a psychologist, I followed this and this and this and this and this and I become this.
Yeah.
If I have ADHD, I want to become a chartered accountant, this is the route to competence. I'm smart enough to go through it, but it's like I can't thrive in here. I know what I want. But there's the fear.
Yeah. Do you want to go? Because I have an answer to that, but I'll
Yeah,
let
no, you can go.
Okay, let me go. I think for me, in the beginning, right, like, obviously people call me with the name. Again, I said, like, in my family, I'm the only person. I have 5 siblings. All of them use their Venda names. I'm the only person that uses my English name, right? And I didn't choose that in the beginning. But now I'm older and I can choose to introduce myself as Pindulo, right? But I never do. And you're right. The reason behind that is based on fear, because a part of me that acknowledges that the name has power and it has this meaning that I'm supposed to be in the world is also like, I have the responsibility, first and foremost. And secondly, it's like, because people don't know that name as much, I'm protected from just whatever anybody else might think about me when I move into a space. Because if I come into a space and I say, my name is Pindulo, the next person has an idea of what that is, what my parents were thinking when they gave me that name, and so on and so forth. So I kind of lean towards that. Really, I'm protected from that. Whatever negativity you might associate that, and maybe towards me because of that, I'm protected from it. Now, right, because I understand that I'm kind of fearful in that, I try in small ways
to confront it.
To confront it. Hence, I'm speaking about it right now to say this is what it is for me, right? And the reason I say it is to hold myself accountable so that when I go into spaces, I can say Nifi Pindulo, and people can call me that so that I can also get more comfortable with that name around, like being called out and being proclaimed. So I don't know about you, Jim. That's my answer.
So I recently had a conversation about this very same thing with my brother Itai Hakim, right? He's a musician who he recently moved to his actual name, which is Itani Rewone. right? So we had this entire discourse, and I think there's a time where I had put Musuku on my Instagram for like, I'm like, okay, let me just
Try it out. Let me
feel this
see.
thing out, So we touched into this conversation, and so for me, it's a combination of things, right? The first one, obviously, being like, now I test this, when I moved, and I test this entire thing of reinventing yourself, and I get a taste of it. I'm like, okay, you can, And then when I grew up, my thing is, there was an element of my dad is an overachiever, right? And now you like. And like is a person who's not just an overachiever but also did that under really difficult circumstances, right? So both my parents are visually impaired, which is another element into my life that is just so I felt that I needed something that could have me create my own story, and not necessarily because I felt that everything that I would do in life would be like man type thing, right?
Okay.
So I wanted to reinvent myself in a way that I can be responsible for my own stuff, and by mostly moving anonymously in spaces where if I had just said my name, people can just connect the dots and say, oh, you're this and this person. So I've prided myself in that I have done a lot of things using my own name and not necessarily latching on a surname or like, because I also have a really unique name, like Musuku is it's very easy to bring that name up in spaces and like, oh no, Marandi Diba Musuku, I want just what I'm saying, right? So for me, it was also an element of that. I really just wanted to own my own narrative and navigate the world in my own way without the weight of whatever has come before me. That's one element of it. So even in that recreating myself, and that's before the gin thing comes through, right? So at one point I was NSK and I was Black Monk, and the Black Monk thing came because now I needed to like own the fact that I'm dark skinned, right? And I'm like, no, y'all are not gonna.
I'm gonna own this.
I'm gonna own it. Like I'm dark skinned, sure, but like so I'm gonna create a whole.
I'm gonna
character
celebrate
around
it.
I'm gonna celebrate it, right? So my first rapper name was like Black Monk, coming through, this guy, because I was also really quiet, and that's where I guess the monk part in it came through. Because now I'm finding myself in this space where I have to, and then I guess Jin came when I was in matric. That was because of this poetry collective that I started with this lady. So it was called Ginger and Honey, right?
Yeah.
And it was, I guess, a metaphor for just how, ginger and honey is a remedy for like a sore throat. And so like if you drink it, it clears your throat, freedom of speech, you can speak, you're heard, whatever. But also to just speak to the fact that some poetry is, not so sweet. So it's like, it's got a bitter truth to it, like ginger, and some is sweet and cuddly and fluffy like honey or whatever. So the thing with her, the lady, her name was already called Lydia the Honey, whatever. So people automatically assumed my name is Ginger. And I'm like, oh no. But it stuck, right? I'm like, okay, cool, let's just make it Jim. And so I started, I would just post like quotes on Facebook on a daily basis. And that's where the daily came in. So it became Gin Daily. I was like a young Facebook philosopher back then.
Monk.
That is so fire. I actually want to go into Venda Creative Cartel, but before I get into that, I cannot not touch on the fact that you just mentioned that your parents are visually impaired.
Yes.
I think that's like a very interesting thing to grow up in a house where what does that do to you? And you mentioned like your father is like an overachiever, and I'm trying to think like, what does that do to your mental? Yeah. Because I'm thinking so many things.
So in a way, right? Like I grew up with it as my normal, right? In a way, but it's normal, but at the same time, you have everyone reminding you because it's like they're not accustomed to it. They're curious about it, and so in a way, you're always being pulled into this part where you have to ask yourself things that other people are thinking about.
Sure.
So for me, I grew up in it as normal. There's I learned to accept it because I'm like
this is me.
This is my life. I mean, even the dogs we had at home knew my parents are blind, which is crazy. It's like, so I mean, and fascinating enough, when I saw my little brother at a really young age, like before he could even speak, he knew my mom was blind, and I don't, to think about it, I'm like, okay, it's crazy. You just know. So that speaks to just how that's my normal. That's all I know, right? But then now with the overachiever thing, right? Like, I mean, my dad's a professor, and you know, my mom's a teacher with a law degree and all that stuff.
I think
And-
also it's like the whole thing around like how it's like when the odds are stacked against you in life.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just this inherent thing where you just end up being forced to just work a bit harder, but like that's not even your intention, but because
just
the
like-
odds are just
Right?
inherently
Yeah. Exactly.
like the example I always keep making about like how I'm so bad at eye contact, right?
Yeah, but
but
now
it's
you're
like no one's ever said, Mash, you have bad eye contact, even
Yeah.
professionally, because I'm so conscious of it that every single time I'm on a call or I'm with people, I'm just like, Mash, don't lose eye contact because it's important. You're in a professional setting.
Yeah.
Don't look at the wall. Don't, you know, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So with that thing, like where there's a level of competing you have with things that you didn't set those things up, right? And so, I mean, I would see this with like, and also I say like a level of pity, which is really unnecessary, I think.
People don't like being pitied.
Yeah. People don't like being pitied. And now it's like this, like a collective pity, you know, it's like, you know, I would have like people come up to me and be like, you know, like, yeah, you know, now you need to really do good in life because look at what your parents did and they're blind. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, but you know,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
you know,
I hear
but
what
like it's good enough for you to just want me to do good in life, but let it not be on the basis of because of someone's struggle and whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
sure, and I
exactly.
appreciate the environment I grew up in. I appreciate the opportunities that I had and stuff like that. But that will always be, you know, used as a
Benchmark of some
I can't
sort.
help
Yeah.
but like now think about like for me, sorry if I'm connecting dots that are not supposed to be connected, but like for me it goes back to your identity and you wanting to be identity-less. You know, I write a lot about
Yeah.
self-sovereignty.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my work
So
is
this is me.
literally on self-sovereignty.
Yeah.
And I think about how, like, I read a lot of James Baldwin's work, right? And James Baldwin says you need to have a moral ask.
Yeah.
Like, at a certain point in your life, ask yourself, like, what am I living for? What's that moral question? And for me, I'm fortunate enough that, God willing, I have it. And it's around self-sovereignty. And I know that I'm going to probably get to the end of my life and I'm going to think self-sovereignty is worth thriving for or it's not worth thriving for. So I have the moral question. And that's what's I'm getting from like your story, like contrasting it with how you grew up, right? Like you figured that like there's just so much more that is attached to you, and you're like, it's great, but I don't want that. You know, I wanna morph myself into like who I'm feeling myself to be.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the black monk.
Yeah.
You know, like
You know,
you know, so that's what I'm getting. Like, it's not like none of what we've talked about to this point is like not intertwined.
Exactly. Like, everything is, even the idea to like reinvent yourself and be comfortable in reinventing yourself in so many sections of your life as you grow older. That's so interesting. I don't know if you want to finish your thought or if we can just get into Venda Creative Cartel.
Let's get into it.
Okay, Venda Creative Cartel. Atinga Hangu Ramabrana, you guys get together. You're like, we have this thing. We want to create something. Tell me about that. How does it start? How does it become Venda Creative Cartel?
Interesting, and I'm glad you know that history, that piece of history. That's you know, you do your research.
You know what? We will find information.
Yeah, you do your research.
We've tapped in.
So my journey with Atinga is like a beautiful one to reflect on, actually. I meet Atinga, I think she's in grade 10 at the time. I'm already in varsity at the time, right? I'm doing my poetry stuff. And so I meet her during this time.
So your poetry ginger.
No. I'm running my first company now. It's called Poetoria.
Oh,
Which is poetry in Pretoria. So this is like maybe like
Poetoria.
2014, 2013, from around that point, right? So I'm doing Poetoria. I'm also part of like poetry collective called Black Suburbia with a guy called Ezra Silulu, Masai Sipuru, and Angamamfanya, right? So we like the four guys that are doing this thing. So we get called to Atinga at the time is hosting something called Wada Writers Club, which she started at school. So she went to Mbiri and she started a poetry club in Mbiri, right? She sort of like knows about us.
Did you guys meet at Chikewa?
No. I left Chikebe at grade 5. Me and Atinga meet later in life. She's in varsity when we meet.
Oh yeah, you did say yeah.
She's in varsity when we meet.
Because I'm just trying to find like so you just happen to just both be from Venda, but you meet in varsity.
No. We're not in varsity together. Me and Atinga. We
Yeah,
meet
I
in
know
Venda.
you're older, but like I want like how do you like what?
We meet
how
in
does
Venda. We meet when she's still in high school.
Oh,
I'm in
but you
varsity,
do
she's
meet in
high
Venda.
school. We meet in Venda.
Okay,
we live in
okay.
the same neighborhood.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, we live in
okay.
Zuramani Rote, right?
Okay.
And so Atinga is a person that she started this writers club. She finds out about this collective that we have called Black Suburbia. She hits us up knowing that, she's actually also at school with my little sister. They're in, I think, the same class and stuff, So every now and then when I'd come back, I would give her like a poetry book or whatever and stuff like that, and like tell her about all these poets that she watches on YouTube, and I know them personally, and she's so fascinated that I know them personally and
That
stuff
thing.
like that, So she starts Mwana Writers Club. She calls us to come perform at the Tulamela Library and stuff. We come with the guys, we do a performance. And then after that, she's like, you know what? I really want to go all out with this, poetry thing. We really need to bring poetry to Venda and stuff like that, right? I'm like, yeah, no, we should. I'm already experienced in this thing, right? I'm already hosting I was working at a gallery also at the time. So I was a gallery curator for MB Studios from Bongeni Buthelezi and
Oh,
Saramaki.
shucks.
Right opposite the Reserve Bank. So I would host my poetry sessions there. And I had I'd put 12 shows in a year. But these were more intimate, these were more intimate type showcases and stuff. So...
But like that's an average of a show a month. So you're doing numbers.
And that's a lot of work to host 12 shows. That's crazy.
But it was it happened so organically because of the environment as well, which happened really differently from the Venda experience. It was more of like a build up. But anyway, I eventually I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna come down to Venda. Let's try this thing out. And I remember the first thing we did, we had to find a venue, and we thought, okay, cool. Let's use the Botanical Gardens, right? And the proposal to the Botanical Gardens was handwritten on a piece of paper. She wrote that on a piece of paper. We took it there, and we have our first picnic. I did the graphics. We did the poster. And, I think this is 20...
Back in the day, we got delivered yogurt, that's a Roman pizza.
So I might get the dates wrong, but so we put the poster up. I had a lot of assistants. I think back then who was assisting me, and it's really important to mention these people's names because there's a guy called TJ. I don't know if you know TJ. Cultivated Cure.
Yeah, I don't want to say the thought I'm thinking.
That's TJ. TJ played a very pivotal role in the promotion of that first thing, because I remember TJ would come through to Pretoria and would link up and stuff. Velamina, Red. These were the first few people that, were interested in promoting the thing. Because they both Veli and them and both Red were at Univen at the time, right? And, then, it grows and people invite other people. That's where now we meet Bo Swabu Dimwaba. That's where we meet Bo Kata. That's where we meet Bo Figo. We meet all these people. And at this time, it's just a small picnic. There's no stage. We're just people chilling by the grass. And if you have something to share, back then, H&M was a poet before the rapping stuff. He's me and him really, we kicked it off on the poetry stuff as well, or even our interests in the books we're reading. He's a big fan of Dambuzo Marachera, who wrote The House of Hunger. That was a thing, a big conversation we would have. So he was one of
There's this little clip that always makes the rounds every year before Acoustics and Poetry, where H is wearing a black shirt and a bokati. And he's a little intimate. I think we should clip it.
Yeah. And it's
some shit. I couldn't write. I was going through a writer's block or some shit. And then I went to Univen to go get my girl. And then while there, I was sitting, I heard some nice music, chilled ass music. And then it was church. I had to go into church. I went into church and I sit down and words just start coming. I'm sitting there and then I start crying, bursting into tears, someone just told me some other shit. So it was crazy and fucking awkward at the same time. This is not the poem, guys. This is the backstory, so we're connecting. I want to interact. This is the cross. So very often our thoughts stray us away from what is. Apocryphal sincerity loses itself in the midst of what could be. In simple terms, we unconsciously abandon our will to carry the cross. A kind of Bible around your thighs, divine vines in a spiral like sacred text. I yearn to be your reader. Which way to your altar, man come here to worship vacant bodies with souls for sacrifice? Which way to your river? I come to quench my thirst, to cleanse myself for desiring a covenant of consensual coitus with you. Is this glory or insult?
Every time I think about it, I sit. How we flipping all these pages, go for you, I would kill. Go your heart, I thought I'd take it cause I know how you feel. Yeah, yeah. You know I know how you feel. Shit. Okay, it's like this. Took me some time to write this. Took me some rhyming power, some hours to fly when I spit. I know you like it more than flowers when I rhyme and I get crazy. I wear that straight jacket I get that you gave me. And
It's inspired by the House of Hunger, that piece, because he has this line in there that's very controversial. But anyway, yeah. So we'll mess the difference with it.
Like the first time, I actually. I'm sorry for cutting you. I get a lot of smoke for cutting people short, but like I'm just
gonna be on your board.
I'm just getting a wild ass. The first time, like I was fascinated by H, right? Like was from his poetry, right? And when we were super young, I'm like 3 years older than him, so I was probably like 14 at the time or 13ish, and he was like probably 10, 11.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'll cut your tongue out." Just because you can't speak in tongues. That was part of the whole thing. And that
What up?
Match D.
It's easy.
Yeah. And some JJ Bay, dog. Unprepared. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess it's time we share. Let's. Yo, bitch, nigga, standing with my girl at the corner. Yo, dude, bitch, nigga, I'll put you in a coma. Ghetto bitch. Yeah, he play rugby. My gang, yeah. Go in, I'm going, okay. Look me in the eyes and check if I ain't lying. Cause how about they trying to bring me down, Mara mountain, I will keep climbing. They just selfish, Mara, I ain't fish buying. Won't ever be safety, so I was beat Brian. I work hard, flying colors keep flying. Now my gang on the sidelines just keep smiling. Must be my team got cocky when I'm freestyling. Must be my name shot for keep by you. I work hard, flying colors keep flying. Man beat, second line freestyling. Okay, wait. Okay, I'm feeling this shit. Let me go back.
Oh,
Yeah.
motherfucker.
I'm trying to hit you with some poetry right now. Okay. I hold the sands of time, go back into the past, man, I bring back to life the songs that was once sung. I take your tongue out, just cause you can't speak in tongues. Yeah, and I do it all at once. I break the hands of Armageddon, laugh at the face of doom, I go back to heaven, live in the Garden of Eden, beat your flow up. Some said that I would get beaten. I spick and spit rhymes into the mic, show the rhymes I've eaten. Go back home to Rome, take what's awfully mine, bring back my soul, collect the bones of my ancestors, resurrect them, so I get my answers.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, I get my answers. Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, what up, yo?
And that was the first time I was like,
Yeah.
damn, bro. I was
on
like,
something.
yeah, bro. I'm like
Yeah.
13. He's like 11, 10. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, bro.
Yeah.
Like that's, yeah. Like,
Yeah, but
yeah.
that's H&M for you, man. He even says it in his older work. I know a lot for my age. You know, he does. You know,
Yeah.
like I mean, like. And now this is gonna be an H&M conversation. Like it's fascinating.
Let's go back to AMP. Let's go back to AMP.
Yeah. So we meet all these people, and I'm trying to remember her name. Una Rem's little sister. Okay, she's a whole woman now who's married. So I'm calling her someone's little sister. But yeah, she was always also at these events. The Rems family in general, Tony Rems, also like a big, Tony Ramps is the first big artist we ever had at Acoustics and Poetry, because no one was more popular than Tony Ramps.
Yeah.
So he was so humble, so like, willing to come through and help us create this thing. So Acoustics and Poetry really started from a place where even every single person that attended that time played some kind of role into building and sort of like validating this thing that we're creating. It happened under this tree, and it was.
I love that you say validating, and because that's an affirming thing, right? Like it's a positive thing. But I'm wondering about like just the struggle of being creatives and people that are trying to create something that has never been there in Venda specifically, and how that has been like for you. Because I can imagine there's a lot of things that happen in Venda, but not a lot that happen in this kind of way, where you want to go hard on poetry, you want to go hard for creatives. We speak a lot about how creativity in general is not something that's really supported or backed off, and that's the culture, right?
Yeah.
How is that, like starting something like that in Venda specifically? What's the frustration? What is the stuff that's affirming for you?
Okay, so there are negatives and positives, or like challenges, and I don't know what else to put it as. And I think one great positive thing was that, like when I say everyone that was there at the time in the beginning helped validate this thing, is because they were like-minded people, right? It's like they made it easy, because honestly speaking, any one of those people then, those kids that we were 7-8 years ago, could have started this thing, right? For the same kind of people. They just never did. But the reason I'm saying they could have started it is because the reason they came showed that there was a need for a platform like this to exist for people like them.
And they became a part of it at its infancy.
Yeah, exactly. And which also then prompted what I did next, right? So what I did next from those people, we collected them. And when I say we, I think at the time it was myself, TJ, and Atinga Angwi, if I'm not mistaken. I could be getting, but these are the only people I was working with at the time. We created a group, a WhatsApp group, right? And just put everyone in there as who attended. And I remember I said, if you are interested in building this concept with us, meet me at the library next to Tawane Mall. And, let's build a thing. It literally just started like that. There was an open call. Whoever could have come through, right? So when I tell you about the only
and that's the founding of Venda Creative Cartel.
That's the founding of Venda Creative Cartel. Because see, Acoustics and Poetry starts first, right? Acoustics and Poetry starts an event, but now Venda Creative Cartel, which is the umbrella.
So Acoustics and Poetry starts before
Venda Creative Cartel. Yeah, the event, because it was just an open mic, right? And now, after realizing that, yo, man, this thing needs to exist and it needs to be by the people, by these kids that want to see it happen. So anyone, and you didn't have to be my friend. I didn't need to know you or whatever the case may be, which is why, you see, like the only person that I knew in the beginning of Acoustics and Poetry, then, excuse me, it's the tonic.
It's all good. Jean.
The only people I knew then were Atinga Angwi, TJ, and Tendo Manyache, who factors in later. He's our numbers guy, right? I went to primary school with him. Remember when I failed? He was in my class.
He was one of the focused kids.
Yeah. He was one of the focused kids. Him and his twin. So these were the people that I knew. Everyone else that became part of my team was just introduced to me fresh. Like everyone else that, Murendeni, and I think I forgot to mention him initially, Murendeni, or DJ Rudy Kastek, he's a proper deep house DJ and producer. Murendeni, Kata, Figo, Tendo, Wumboni, Zwabudi. These are people that I only then was introduced after, doing these meetings. And other people recruited other people, like, here are more people that are interested in doing this thing. Like, now let's build it. And we just became family. We just built it from there, and we just that's so the much. Story of Venda Creative Cartel.
I love that so much. Like just how synchronicity, like how just becomes a thing. And I guess that's the recipe, right? To get people to work together, is to get like-minded people to work on a thing. Mesh, do you have anything you want to ask on Venda Creative Cartel before we move into A&P and just that?
I mean, yeah. Currently, you are. I'm interested in like how you guys work.
Okay.
You know, like. I remember the other interview I watched of you. You spoke about like how I think currently you are like the head, but it's like that's not. It's not written in stone. It's not in stone. You guys vote.
Yeah.
So take me through how you guys work. Also, how like I mean, most of the time when I've been to a few now, I think 4 or 5 A&Ps, and you walking around, you like. And then you have Joao who's got like the camera. So someone would assume like, hi, he's not contributing much. Like Jin is just walking around. But it's like maybe your work has already been done prior, you know? So like just take me through the roles, like what like you don't need to go into the specifics, but like what everyone does, how a team looks, and like even just the process of like how long someone leads and like how you go about that.
Okay. So there are people who've also gone like separate ways along the journey. There are people who've decided to go explore other things and who've really also helped us get where we are right now. But how it works, right? And they've been like from the beginning of creating this thing, we're like these kids that are like, now we are building an organization and we know nothing about organization, right? Yeah. So there were a lot of teething problems, right? Like there were a lot of learning each other. There were a lot of, especially, okay, so now at some point when the Venda Creative Cartel has been created, now Atenga Hangui is going into med school. She doesn't have the time for this, right? So I start building the thing with the guys without her, right? And in the beginning, I'm very touchy and I'm very sensitive about how we curate this thing, borderline dictator type stuff in the beginning, right? Because here I am, I'm already experienced in hosting poetry and jazz shows in the city. I'm this guy and whatever. I'm like, I'm coming back to Venda and whatever the case may be. You've got experience, and I mean, I guess a little bit of arrogance as well that like, this, and in the beginning, it's like, okay, guys, this is how we're going to do it. This is because I'm also feeling at this time, like I'm here to introduce something that I've not necessarily seen happen here. So allow me to lead.
Yeah. I've got the blueprint.
I got the blueprint, and I guess the blueprint works for like a while, and then we just need to revisit and say, okay, guys, we need to really structure this thing. And
the market is volatile. Things are happening.
Things are happening. But also you need to understand, like for me, it was about I used to be a perfectionist, right, in what I wanted to create and what I wanted us to create. And for more than anything, it felt like I needed to sell everyone the vision and know that we are on the same page and we're moving with the right, and it's open for contribution and what's this? You can contribute your collaboration, your ideas. Okay, let's do this like this and whatever. But I felt that in the beginning I had this road and this path I needed to show everyone, right? But I also needed to grow because I didn't know that there are times where I actually needed to be more humble and listen to how we can curate this thing, right?
Yeah.
So we build this thing, and it's democratic in the sense that everyone in the company is an equal shareholder. They're director. You're not just following. This is your brand as much as it is mine. Just what I'm saying. You own a part of this thing. We're getting to build this thing together. As we grow, we start realizing that, okay, we need systems. Without systems, we're animals. You can't separate us from the animals. And we had this brilliant guy called Bomboni, right? He is a systematic person. He just exists in a world where formality is a thing, right? So he will draw contracts, he'll create structures, he would bring this entire way of functioning for the team, which really helped. And we now start to move more as an organization. Like, we need to have meetings often, and we need to have an agenda. We need to have this, and we need to have that, and we need to, and then the entire concept about, okay, cool, fine. Here are the roles that we play. And here is how we fit into the different things that we do. And this is about to speak. I took a long drive to get to this.
It's okay.
No. I get
That's
it.
great information.
I get it. Like one thing I forgot to tell you just before we started was like, go in. Like,
go in.
Yeah. Like when you answer, go in.
We love the long-winded answers.
Context, intricacies, here they matter.
This is the first time I've openly admit it to a public platform that I'm long-winded because I usually deny it. I'm like, nah, you just don't.
Yeah, you're safe.
So
It's a safe space.
Yeah,
So-
we're
so-
bringing nerd back for real.
Exactly.
we start finding a structure. We start finding formality. It becomes second nature. We start learning how to. And I mean, this is a group of guys. We all guys. I mean, Tinga's at school at this time, right? Egos collide. There's a lot of friction sometimes. There's a lot of this, and we need to find a way to like navigate through all these different energies, and at the same time be able to have everyone tap into what they really do best, right? Me, naturally, leadership is my thing. I've always led, and I've always led because I didn't like following, right? So I would always. No, I'm just saying.
I hear you.
I
It's
didn't
just,
like
I just
following.
love it.
You're right. I'm a person
Yeah.
who's always created the space that I wanted to see exist, and so people would dig that and would move and stuff like that, right? So, I was not the smartest person in the team, but I still believe that leadership has just always been my quality. It's a
Yeah.
gift and a curse. Heavy is the crown or the head.
Yeah.
head.
Heavy is the head that carries the crown.
Exactly, and it's the thing is people look at leadership and they think like, oh no, you're the main guy, you're the spotlight. And for me, it's never been about that. It's just I understand the assignment, and one thing about that is
Also, how
I'm
you're able
not-
to make everyone else in the team thrive, right?
Yeah.
Outside of like, hey,
Leadership
I'm not
is-
the smartest.
I'm not the smartest,
but I
yeah,
can
yeah.
make these smart cats
exactly
thrive.
that's what I'm saying. It's like because you can identify the smart guy and like, okay, cool, fine. See, the smart guy needs to do this, and the technical guy, whatever, needs to do that, and the financially smart guy needs to do that. I'm the creative concept guy and the leader guy. I see the vision through. That's even in my professional life, I'm a concept guy. I'm a business developer type person, right? So we have all these, and to speak to what you were saying about like walking around and stuff like that. On the day, my job is just to check everyone and see that everything is on
Remember
order.
the little video you took, man? Like, I remember exactly what Jin was saying. Like, he's like, bro, check out the lights.
So for for me, it's like my work. Like for instance, right now I'm already working on acoustics. I'm already working. I've been, in fact, from the last event till now, I haven't stopped working. I've been updating the website. I've been reworking the website. I looked at a website from this other event, and I just really looked it up. So I'm like, nah, this is not on. So I need to start reworking it, stuff like that, right? One thing. You can't outwork me. That's the thing. Like everyone knows who works with me, and that's where the bar is. It's like if you want to be in this position, all good and well, but you need to be able to hold up the standard. I can promise you that you are not gonna outwork me, right? And so that's the thing. It's like everyone is sort of comfortable in what they do, and if it comes a time where you feel like, okay, cool, fine. I feel like now I have the capacity to carry us and stuff. Because I remember coming into this year, I actually didn't want to be CEO of the entire thing. I was like, yo, guys, I'm tired. I want to build other things with my partner. We have ideas. I want to sort of like take a back seat at this thing and watch you guys sort of like move, but a lot happened. And then I realized that a lot that happened needs a person that I didn't even realize. I guess it was a collective realization. Needs a person with experience and who's carried this thing to sort of like solve these problems that we have right now.
I think that goes well into like the next part of the chat on AMP.
Yeah, so it's like I'm the damage control guy. I'm the villain. And you know what? I'm comfortable with that.
What's
it.
yeah, I want us to go into like what's wrong? Like in the wrongness of it. And I don't want us to be like controversial about it, but like just, and not even from an individualistic perspective, like this person, but like what is essentially like just even the realization of like, no, don't take a step back. You're still needed at the forefront. Like what about ANP like needs work, needs revisiting, needs like what about it?
Okay, guys, you see visually, experientially, A&P as a concept, I think people
Also,
love it.
please go touch on the camping as well and
Okay,
that whole
all
entire-
that stuff and
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
So acoustics and poetry as an experience, I think with the feedback that we've been getting from people in the past 7 years, going into 8 right now, is that, okay, people dig this thing. They love it. But they don't always understand the mechanics that go behind it, right? I'm going to give you the first thing, and I'm saying this on a public platform, right? In the 8 years of Acoustics and Poetry, we've never made a profit. And these are harsh realities that you need to live with in the space of eventing, right? Eventing, especially coming up with concepts like that, in Venda, again.
Just a quick one on the profit. Is it like bad or like close to breaking even? Like when you say we haven't made a profit, is it like you guys are burning money?
Okay, so here's the thing. You also need to understand the history of money with Acoustics and Poetry, right? We started off self-funded for the first 5 years of our operation from pocket, right? And I think that taught us a lot. And that's exactly why we're still doing this thing right now. Because, I mean, I feel like if money came too early in life and stuff like that, we would have gotten too excited and probably wouldn't even be a team right now. We had to learn a lot about just pushing this thing, right? So in the first 5 years, we self-funded. In the beginning, that was just about taking the profits we made and saving them in case we actually don't get any sponsorship and we need to use our own funds to make this thing happen again. And one thing I can tell you, outside of like Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, which we've only been funded by once, and we've also been funded by BASA, the Business and Art of South Africa, once, right? Outside of that, we would just take our proceeds from the previous event, put them into the next event and try to see how we make it happen, you know? And it's when you start looking at eventing, if you're not looking at these government fundings and stuff like that, and you're trying to look at brands, like you see how you experience events in the city, you go to Homecoming or you go to whatever, you see like, you know, you've got banks, you know, you've got, not your brother. Actual
I get it. I get it.
You know, you've got.
Hey Neighbor was big
Hey Neighbor.
on the sponsors.
Exactly,
it was
right?
crazy.
We went to, Hey Neighbor was crazy, right? You had like Kit Kat, you had Coca-Cola, you had
Everything.
Heineken, you had
Netflix was there.
all
But
that
I
stuff.
mean, even the small ones, you are
as
the
well.
most recent one I went to, I think had Savannah. No, they had Miller. Sorry, they had Miller. Yeah.
In our experience, right, those brands, it's very difficult to have them come down to Venda for an event that happens once a year of that capacity, right? And in eventing, the money is in the sponsorships. It's not in the gate takings or whatever. No, that's not where the money is. The money is the sponsors, the collaborations, the partnerships, the people who are willing to leverage on the audience that you're creating. That's where the money really, really comes from, right? So, I mean, and throughout this time, we're trying to bring these people out here. We're trying to do all but we're also still learning. And that's another thing. We're learning concepts at the same time. We're trying to implement them at the same time, but time is moving, you know, like we're not really cool kids like that. Like we're not connected in the city. Like, you know, I'm connected in the city, but with like the underground stuff. I'm the jazz cat. I'm the connected to the underground movement, not like you know, so we're learning, we're doing all these things, but at the same time, the show must go on, right?
Fair.
Which means if the next year comes along and time to put that budget into sound and this and this and this and this, everything comes together. You're going to need to take that money and throw it in there. And are you going to make it back? Are you not going to make it back? We don't know, you know? So that's the difficulty in running something like this. If you're not passionate about it, I watched someone that was saying he's also in events. This Caucasian guy, he hosts the circus something.
I wouldn't know, sir.
I forget.
Not coming.
It's not an actual circus. It's a very prestigious event.
Niche
but
thing.
anyway, it's a very niche event. I think it's anyway. That guy said something that like I really, really resonated with. And he said, if you don't have a risk appetite, don't go into eventing. Don't. If your thing is you wanna curate something because you wanna make a lot of money, don't do events. Because you could, Coachella, for instance, started in 1999. They only made their first profit in 2004.
Okay, so what
Right.
what would you say at the core? Like put it to me succinctly.
Okay.
What is given that like you're not making a profit, but it's such an important, like we do understand the importance of, we all know, like everyone that attends, of course, like even the energy, like when you walk in, you just feel it.
Yeah.
So like, what would you say at the core is like the importance of it?
Of acoustics
from
and poetry.
from a working perspective, what drives you to still work on something that you're not even making that much from?
Okay.
Yeah.
Seeing H and them, right? Seeing H and them, who's an artist that started off at acoustics and poetry before he even rap, be what he is right now, and we know we played a role, is why we're still doing this thing.
Yeah.
I wish we had more
It's just
time. There's so much to
really
talk about.
wish, but
There's
yeah.
so much to talk about.
I'm gonna fast
yeah.
forward into this A&P that we just had in the previous year. As I said, this was my first time, and I kid you not, I prepared. I left. I even put on leave. I left on Wednesday for home so that I can make it home for Thursday. Yeah. And I guess honestly, I didn't see a lineup of who was gonna be there, but in my mind,
there is no
I
lineup.
desperately wanted to see H. Like literally, that's like I was like, because I have history with his music, just generally. You know, and that was the only place I felt like I could actually see H in his prime with his people at this level, right? So
I also say that, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
man.
no, sure.
I also say, when I say seeing H and them, I both say it as mostly as a metaphor for what he represents.
As an entity.
You know, as some of what he represents. You know, there's
But
someone, there's another
so
kid.
much. He represents Francis
Exactly.
Blaze. He
Just what I'm saying,
represents
just what I'm
Old
saying.
McDirt,
Exactly.
Lychee. Like he
Exactly.
represents so much more than just.
And the core of A&P, I must assume.
He's
That's what
like
he
the
created.
epitome of what the event represents
it's-
from an
yeah.
artist standpoint.
Exactly. Which is to say that there is another kid out there who there aren't platforms that represent what they do, right? And also maybe now and now we need to also look at, okay, we can see how Age, for instance, from Acoustics and Poetry was able to garner like his audience and build it, his core audience and stuff like that, and the audience that he has now and stuff, right? But he's also now gone out and created an entire culture where kids are more experimental with the music and stuff, right? Like an entire platform where kids can now feel like, damn, like I can
create whatever.
I can create this music, and I can be so multifaceted, and I can play guitar and rap and sing and this, and not sound like all the other, you know, Venda rapper guys that paved the way to here. Because everything, people will tell you when they listen to his music, they'll be like, yeah, nah, this is different. Like I've been listening to like, you know, Ven rap, but this is like different and stuff like that, right? Kids are now open to trying that out because he's then created that. But Acoustics had to come and create an initial platform that people can jump on and whatever the case may be. So all to say that I feel like there are kids out there, there are people out there, there are artists out there that need a platform like Acoustics and Poetry to exist. And it is bigger than us right now. Right?
And that's answering it succeintly, yes.
You know,
it's bigger than you.
It's bigger than us. It's not about me as an individual or any of the team members that we have, whatever. It's we have been blessed to be able to steward over a concept that is not like any other concept that exists currently in the space.
He's gonna have to come back, bro.
It's gonna have to, because I have so many. We had to do a part 2 of this. We definitely have to, because I want to get into seeing age become age, because you're speaking about age as an entity, right? And that's at the core of A&P, and you being present to see that journey and that transition. So like,
bro, like my little rant, I don't know if you ended up seeing it, but my little rant was like, and this is not H as a metaphor. This is H as H, right?
Yeah.
H is to A&P, right? What Tyler is to Camp Gnaw.
What Focalistic is to Homecoming.
You see, so I think we should never let go of that. And like I wanted to go into I also wanted to go into the theme of like Ufarera and like male egos.
But I want to get into like a few things that I know maybe these things are not in your questions.
Like also the whole.
But I feel like they should be on this podcast.
it's okay. Let it go.
Okay. But also like I was so interested in like the camping. I'm so interested in like how A&P grows, how we see it evolving.
Where do we go from
like we have events like Rocking the Daisies. But I look at A&P like this is something that we could grow to like so much bigger or like just as great, you know.
It's in the
and the camping experience has been there at a minuscule level. I remember, and like how we could see that growing and stuff like that. But and I know you wanna rant, but it's like we just don't have the time. Like we need to go to the end of it. Maureen, please just like.
I honestly wanted to hear this rant. Oh my gosh. Okay. So the end of this is you get an opportunity to ask us a question. Anything. We usually have this thing where Mesh asks a question or ask a question.
It's like a bi-weekly thing. So the other week it's her.
Exactly. Depending on whose week it is. So today, because we have you as a guest, we're gonna give that to you. Like, what would you like to ask? Anything and anything at all.
What would you like to achieve with this platform, and how is that plan going?
Woo.
Pindudo.
Why am I in the hot seat? Why am I on the hot seat?
Give the pindudo.
Yo. Okay. So, wow, that's such a great question. Mesh and I have like endless conversations about this platform and what we wanted to achieve. And every time we have a conversation, there's something new that comes up. But at the core of this thing is we want to bring back the nerd. We want
nerd back, bro.
We want kids to be comfortable with knowing and learning and understanding. Like, yo, it's not cool to do drugs. It's cool to learn. It's cool to do smart things. It's cool to create. It's cool to know about yourself, to know yourself, and to be comfortable enough to present yourself in the world just as that.
To like weird things.
To like weird things. Because the thing is, just because you exist, trust and believe there's somebody else that exists that's just like you or even better than you. So creating this platform is, for me, if I could just put it in like one thing, it's just that. It's to create a platform where anybody can be and anybody can be comfortable with being a nerd, being smart.
Safe space for nerds.
It's safe for that, and I guess being a nerd is not, you're book smart or you're like in the top 10 of whatever school you're in. It's like, being a nerd, it's like, I like drawing. So I'm going to zone into drawing, at least for this podcast. It's like, I'm going to zone into drawing because that's what I need. And I'm going to be an expert at that. I like
events. I'm going to watch documentaries about it. Yeah.
I'm going to do that. I'm into space. I'm going to... Mesh is into... So this is that platform. And in whatever shape it takes... Like whether it becomes, we shoot documentaries, which is something that we'd like to do, whether we curate events, whether we go and bring people together in any way, at the core of that is just to make people comfortable with who they are and make that like cool again. So I don't know if Mesh, you want to add something else, because I went on a little rant.
Yeah, like just the little additions were like, I knew you were going to just put it across, right? I mean, I was having a whole conversation about this yesterday. Like someone was like probing me about Untapped and like Maureen, because they're starting their own pod. And it was the first time I got an opportunity to use like Untapped as a case study, because they like, how do you do the planning? How do you do the... And it's like, even when like an example I could make is like how when we started the pod, we were like, this is Untapped and we are very liberal individuals and like so laid back. So we don't have like a set day of like when we drop our episodes. Like the fans, we're not accountable to the fans. They shouldn't tell us, yo, we're waiting for this thing on a Friday, right? But like just us starting, we're like, okay, every second Thursday we drop. So like, and we agreed on that. So I think there's a sense of camaraderie that's like, what's the word I'm looking for? That's like God ordained, bro. Like it's like, we're just so in sync that it's like, it's at levels that I don't understand, bro. Like it's like, it's beyond me.
And I guess at A&P, I met people like, and I was just like, this is beyond even this, because I met people that I tapped into the pod and they were telling me about their experiences, and like just to see like physical human beings that care about this thing, it was just like, it's gonna take its own. At some point, we're not even going to be like running this thing. It's going to have people that are so passionate about it because that's what it represents for them. So,
guys, thank you for having me in the first episode of the year.
Yay!
I appreciate that.
Mesh, this is us. And all we say is...
Peace out for the peace out.
Bye-bye.
its harsh stage. She played her part so well until the cusp of her very last breath. The rough lines on the palm of her hands were a map that led to all the places inside her that were gracefully broken. Painstakingly, I lick my bleeding wounds. When my lover's lips meet mine, they can still feel the aftertaste of the pain that I've endured. See, mine is a story of survival in a place where pain has lost its tongue but not its lungs. That is an ode to whatever it is.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that. All right, let me just take it a little bit. I think most people know me.
I hate that he just passed
datas, you know.
my
It's
video.
an ode to xenophobic attacks. I am for my people, for the Zim people. They are my people, we are them, they are me, we are each other. So